Correlation coefficient. A correlation coefficient is calculated by dividing the covariance of two variables by the product of their standard deviations, essentially measuring how strongly two variables tend to move together, with a value ranging from -1 being a perfectly negative correlation to +1 being a perfect positive correlation. To find the correlation coefficient, we'll take the covariance of x and y and divide that by the standard deviation of x times the standard deviation of y. What we'll find out is how those are correlated. A positive correlation is greater than 0. When one variable increases, the other tends to increase as well. If there's a negative correlation, less than 0, when one variable increases, the other tends to decrease. And if there is 0 correlation, there is no linear relationship between the two variables. A correlation coefficient is a statistical measure that indicates the strength and direction of a linear relationship between those two variables. And to go into a little more depth, positive correlation, a coefficient greater than 0 indicates a positive relationship, meaning the variables tend to move in the same direction. A coefficient of plus 1.0 indicates a perfect positive correlation, meaning that those two assets will move at exactly the same rate and time. Negative correlation, a coefficient less than 0 indicates a negative relationship, meaning the variables tend to move in opposite directions. A coefficient of -1.0 indicates a perfect negative correlation, which unfortunately does not exist in reality. Ideally, though, if it did, as one asset would increase in value, another asset would decrease slightly. So if you had a gain, it would actually be a much safer gain. When there's no relationship, a coefficient of 0 indicates there is no relationship between the two variables. There is a certain degree of safety in having no relationship between your variables. Correlation coefficients are used in science and finance to assess the degree of association between two variables. For example, investors can use correlation coefficients to manage and create portfolios and handle risk. A diversified portfolio often aims to include assets with low or negative correlations to each other. In the simplest terms, the correlation coefficient is a statistical measure of the extent to which two variables are associated.